All you suckers MCs ain't got nothing on me. On my grades, on my lines, you can't touch Eric C. I'm a mathlete. I'm a nerd, but forget what you heard. I'm like James Bond III. I'm shaking that stirrup. Joining me today, Kyle Whitley, whose father, the inventor of toaster strudel, may not be too pleased to hear about this. And also joining us on the three-way call, because you gotta love the early 2000s, Ashby Brame. Ashby Brame. How do I begin to explain Ashby Brame?
Ashby Brame is flawless.
She has 2 Fendi purses and a silver Lexus.
I hear her hair is insured for $10,000.
I hear she does car commercials in Japan.
Her favorite movie is Twister.
One time, she met Christian Kane on a plane.
And he told her she was pretty.
One time, she punched me in the face. It was awesome.
Yeah! Ashby Brame, everyone.
Everybody. Oh, how are we doing,
I'm
Ashby?
gonna take the recording of that and just like take it everywhere as my introduction.
You should. As you
You
walk
should.
into a room.
I'm surprised we got through it.
50% of that is true.
Yeah, I didn't want to get too personal with all the stuff being true. So, I mean, that's the thing about that scene is what is true and what's rumor that people just heard about them, about Regina George. I mean,
That's fair.
So I figured let's leave a little bit of truth in there, because in every lie there's a kernel of truth. Okay, and I learned that in science.
That's what makes it believable.
That's what makes
right.
it believable. So, yeah, you have 2 Fendi purses and a silver Lexus. Your hair is insured for $10,000.
And you punched Eric in the face.
Yeah, it was awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if
That is true.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually true. So.
I was trying to think, during the whole Hamilton sing-along, she just got excited and went, what? Right in the face.
I had a black eye for a couple of weeks. Yeah. She, she was doing the Hercules Mulligan. Blap blap. She was like blap blap, and just.
I almost got blapped right then.
Yeah, I am Hercules Mulligan.
Is that the new what saying? Like get blapped?
Get blapped.
I feel like we're not gangster enough to say that.
Okay.
Whole nother movie. We're not going
another
there.
movie, but instead tonight we are going to be talking about Mean Girls tonight.
We're here.
That's right.
You've been talking about this since we started the podcast.
This was a dream of mine because I love this movie. We'll get into why I love it in a little bit. But get in, losers. We're going podcasting. Thank you for joining us, where we will keep you. We ought to cancel your podcast, but we've already paid for the DJ. But we will keep you here all night.
We can't keep them here past 4.
We will keep you here until 4. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever it is you get your podcast. And, of course, rate and review us. We accept 5-star ratings. It's a 5. Can we get this in the next size up? No. We only accept stars 1, 3, and 5. If that doesn't work, you can try Sears. Please also join us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at What the What Media.
All one word.
All one word.
Word.
And find us on Twitter at WTW_media. Please share this with your friends. We're not like a regular podcast. There are no rules here. We're like a cool podcast.
Eric, please stop talking.
Okay.
Last week on the podcast, Kyle and I discussed arguments with our parents that were just funny to talk about now. On today's episode, though, we are taking a
deep dive
into Mean Girls. Here's your spoiler warning for today's episode. If you have not seen Mean Girls, so you've never actually seen Mean Girls before, shut up. Shut up.
I didn't say anything.
If you haven't seen this movie, you will have heard about 75% of the quotes by the time the podcast is over, probably from Eric. So make sure you check it out before you listen.
I'm not allowed to recap movies, right? 2 years ago, Eric told me that recapping movies was his thing, and I wasn't allowed to do it anymore. And then for Christmas, my parents got me this awesome, expensive gold movie recapper, and I had to pretend like I didn't even like it. It was so sad. So Eric, since this is your thing, give us a brief refresher on what actually happened in Mean Girls and recap this movie.
I don't think we had that conversation 2 years ago. I'm just saying.
We did, you jerk.
16-year-old homeschooled Katie Heron, not Caddy, Katie Heron, and her zoologist parents, Betsy and Chip Heron, returned to the United States after a 12-year research trip in Africa, settling in Evanston, Illinois. On her first day ever of attending a real school before, North Shore High School, Katie attempts to make new friends, but to no avail. The next day, she meets and befriends Janice, Ian, and Damian Lee. They educate Katie on the school's various cliques and warn her to avoid the most popular and infamous one, the Plastics, which is led by beautiful and manipulative Queen Bee Regina George and includes the insecure but rich Gretchen Wieners and the sweet but dim-witted Karen Smith. I sat with her in English one time. She asked me how to spell orange. The Plastics take an interest in Katie after defending her against a sexist classmate and invite her to sit with them at lunch. After learning of the invitation, Janice asks Katie to befriend them and to spy on them for her. Katie soon learns about the Burn Book, a scrapbook the Plastics have made that is filled with horrible rumors, secrets, and insults about other girls and some teachers at school. Using the book, Janice devises a plan to get back at Regina, but Katie is reluctant, thinking Regina is a good friend. Katie becomes attracted to Regina's ex-boyfriend, Aaron Samuels, Katie, and purposely fails math, a subject that she is gifted at. She's taking calculus as a junior in order to have an excuse to talk to him. Regina finds out about Katie's crush on Aaron from a three-way call attack, orchestrated by Gretchen, and jealously steals him back at a Halloween party by kissing him in front of Katie. This spurs Katie to fully commit to Janice's plan to cut off Regina's resources, which involves breaking Regina and Aaron up, tricking Regina into eating Swedish nutrition bars that actually make her gain weight, and turning Regina's fellow Plastics against her. And in the process, Katie unwittingly remakes herself in Regina's image and becomes spiteful and superficial and abandons Janice and Damien. When Regina is finally made aware of Katie's treachery, she retaliates by spreading the contents of the Burn Book all over the school, quickly inciting massive socially motivated brawls throughout the halls. Or as the secretary tells the principal, they've gone wild. The girls have gone wild. That's such a 2000s joke. Wow. To avoid suspicion, Regina inserts a fake libel of herself in the book in order to blame Katie, Gretchen, and Karen, the only female juniors not mentioned in the book. Karen convinces the school principals, Ron Duval, that they did not write the book, who soon quells the fighting and gathers all the junior girls in the gymnasium. Math teacher Mrs. Norbury makes the girls face the ways they all treat each other and apologize to each other, and the plan sees success as friendships are rekindled. And when Janice's turns come, she confesses her plan to destroy Regina with Katie's help, openly mocking Regina, drawing praise from all the other students that Regina has bullied. Raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by Regina George. Yep. The best part of that is like all the teachers and the assistant or the receptionists and the principal raising their hand there too. So, pursued by an apologetic Katie, Regina storms out of the school and is struck by a bus, breaking her spine. That's how Regina George died. No, just kidding. She did get hurt, though. Breaking her spine, and rumors spread that Katie pushed Regina in front of the bus. So, shunned by her peers, grounded by her parents, Katie takes full blame for the Burn Book. After making amends with Regina, she joins the mathletes in the state championship finals to make up for the math test she failed. Katie answers the tiebreaker correctly. The limit does not exist. And they win the championship for the school. At the spring fling dance, Regina's new boyfriend, Shane Oman, is elected king while Katie is elected queen. And on stage, Katie declares that all of her classmates are wonderful in their own way, snaps her plastic tiara, and distributes the pieces to other girls in the crowd, and reconciles with Janice, Damien, and Aaron, and reaches a truce with the Plastics. The Plastics disband over summer vacation. Regina joins the lacrosse team and channels her anger into sports. Karen becomes the school weather reporter. It's a 30% chance it's already raining, by the way. And Gretchen joins the Cool Asians clique. Aaron graduates from high school and attends Northwestern while starting a relationship with Katie, who visits him on the weekends. Janice begins dating mathlete Kevin DePore, Kevin G and the Power of Three, my favorite band of all time, whom she initially disliked. And as Katie reflects on the social peace that has taken over North Shore High, a group of new junior Plastics has arisen, and Katie imagines them being hit by a bus like Regina was. So violent. So, the movie Mean Girls came out in 2004. It's an American teen comedy film directed by Mark Waters, written by Tina Fey, stars Lindsay Lohan, arguably at her peak, by the way. Rachel McAdams, Tim Meadows, Lacey Chabert, Lizzie Kaplan, Jonathan Bennett, Daniel Fraziz, Amy Poehler, and Tina Fey. Based in part of Rosaline Wiseman's 2002 nonfiction self-help book, Queen Bees and Wannabes, which describes female high school social cliques and the damaging effects they can have on girls. Tina Fey also drew from her own experience at Upper Darby High School as an inspiration for some of the concepts in the field. This is the first film to star Amanda Seyfried, which I thought was very interesting. Saturday Night Live creator Lorne Michaels produced the film. Tina Fey, screenwriter and co-star of the film, was a long-term cast member and writer for SNL. And although it was set in Illinois, The film was mostly shot in Toronto, Canada. Filming took place from September to November 2003. This film marks Lohan's second collaboration with director Waters, the first being Freaky Friday, which was released a year earlier. That's a good movie. It was released on April 30th, 2004, and it grossed $130 million worldwide and developed a cult following. The made-for-television sequel Mean Girls 2 premiered on ABC Family on January 23rd, 2011, and that's the last we'll talk about that. And a musical adaptation premiered on Broadway in March 2018, and I want to go so bad. So, anyway, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you like this movie? Kyle?
I'll go in the middle. I wrote a number, actually, this time.
Good.
I put 7 or 8.
Okay, good.
Because, and I said, don't get me wrong, I really like this movie. But knowing how much you like this movie, I don't know that I could dare say I'd come close to the amount that you like this movie. So I would say 7.
True.
7's a good number.
Ashby?
I'm probably a 4 or a 5.
Oh, my God.
That's honestly higher than I was expecting. I was expecting a 3.
I would have thrown my microphone at her face.
This movie came out when we were in high school.
Yes.
I was in high school.
I was in high school.
And I remember watching it, I think, and just being like, okay. And it wasn't until 2 or 3 years later when I was in college that I started being aware of like people quoting it around me. And then I would be like, that sounds familiar. What movie is that from? They'd be like, Mean Girls. Have you ever seen Mean Girls? I'm like, yeah, but I don't remember really. Like, and then I started realizing that this movie has somehow become a cultural phenomenon, and I missed it. I just watched it thinking it was just any other movie that was like okay and sort of funny. This movie, like what it means to other people and like the idea of what it stands for in pop culture for our generation, that flew right past me. Like I just remember being like, this is a decent movie.
Turns out Ashby's Regina George.
That I'll probably never watch again.
Ashby's Regina George, and she's like, why are they making fun of this girl and giving her such a hard time? I don't get it. She's just being honest about these people. Eric's so disappointed. He's just.
I mean, it is super quotable. It is super quotable. I will give you that. And I get that it is like a perfect snapshot of what it was like to go to school in the high school in the early 2000s. But I think that I end up being maybe a dissenting person in situations like this because I don't like to watch things that remind me too closely of things that have happened to me in real life. Like that's not escapism entertainment to me, which is why like when someone tried to get me to watch Orange is the New Black, I was like, this is horrendous. Why would I ever want to imagine what it would be like to be in a women's prison? Like this is not entertaining to me.
Yeah, Ashby doesn't want to go back.
Yeah, so like the way that these people treat each other in this movie, I was just not I remember watching it originally, I think, and just being like super uncomfortable, except for the parts that were like mildly funny. Because I had Regina George's in my life and I didn't need a fictional one.
That makes sense.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much did I like this movie? The limit does
12.
not exist.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
Love this movie. This movie came out my senior year, the month before I graduated, so I connect this movie with the end of my high school days. I'm fairly certain I saw this movie at the Howe Theater with Chris Rode. I think we were both doing lifeguard training around that weekend because we were getting ready for the pool to open up a month later. So we went to go see it. It wasn't a movie that I had really clamored to see. I mean, I wasn't like, oh, we got to go watch this Mean Girls movie. But it was playing, and you weren't picky about movies back then. It wasn't like every other film was an MCU movie back then. You just went to the movies to go to the movies, and I instantly fell in love with its quotability because that's what I connect with is things that I can quote easily. This movie may have been the first meme-able movie to come out. So, like to prepare for this episode of our podcast, I obviously watched the movie last night. I told Kyle I had it on DVD, but instead I bought it on Apple. That way I have it with me at all times on my phone, which is something I should have done years ago.
It beats having to carry a TV and a DVD player around with you everywhere you go.
I listened to the Rewatchables podcast on this movie from 2019. I listened to Shay Serrano's Villains podcast on Regina George. She got her own episode of Villains from Shay Serrano 2 years ago. Like a lineup that included like Darth Vader, Thanos, Al Pacino's character from The Godfather. I mean, like, so many, like, and this was the first episode they recorded was on Regina George, which tells you something to me. And I read several oral histories of the movie from the cast and crew. I feel like this may be the best high school movie ever made.
Whoa, now.
No, it's better than Breakfast Club.
Whoa, now.
It is better than Breakfast Club. I think
It's not better than Breakfast Club.
Okay, wrong.
I was about to
I
say,
feel like
that's...
Breakfast Club has aged poorly, whereas this one has aged better than Breakfast Club. So it is not without its flaws, as we will talk about in what aged poorly. But I feel
That's just like your opinion.
But I feel like this movie still stands on its own even 17 years later.
You also have Clueless. You have Jawbreakers.
Clueless.
You have the Heathers.
Clueless and Heathers are up there as well. Don't get me wrong. If nothing else, this movie, if you think of the teen movie championship lineage, it goes from Breakfast Club to Heathers to Clueless to Mean Girls to Easy A to
Napoleon Dynamite's in there too.
It's not a no.
No,
no,
he's there.
No,
it's super quotable.
Oh come on, like Cruel Intentions.
Yes.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yes.
I don't think they reached those levels of every of the movies we mentioned. Just
I
saying.
think this is like solid middle of the road.
Yeah, you would be wrong.
This is
okay.
So.
I don't know that I can get over this. I feel like you've missed out on that whole.
I don't care if you
that
can get
whole
over this.
Era of like Pretty in Pink.
No, I
Breakfast Club.
Again, not
all those.
Just because it's not in the top tier doesn't mean they're not good movies. Okay.
I don't know.
We talk about this all the time with the MCU.
Breakfast Club is like
just because it's
history.
not a top 5 MCU movie doesn't mean it's not a good movie. Breakfast Club is in the top tier. I didn't say it wasn't. It's in the top tier best teen movie lineage over the course of teen movies.
That's tough.
You know, I think there's a clear line from Breakfast Club to Heathers to Clueless to this movie to Easy A to what would ever be the equivalent now. So, would it be the kissing booth to all the boys I loved before? I don't know.
I think the equivalent would actually be a movie that either just hit Netflix or is hitting Netflix tomorrow.
Oh,
that's
snap.
also an Amy Poehler vehicle called Moxie.
Okay, I hadn't heard about that.
I thought you were just saying like this is an equivalent to just a Netflix made movie that's coming out tomorrow. Who knows what?
No. I'm saying like I think that
Superbad's on there.
Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused.
Ryan Bassessi's joining in online, giving us all the good ones.
I think that I'm saying that what I think is that based on how I've seen Moxie marketed, I think it will be this generation's Mean Girls.
Okay, that's fair. I hadn't heard of Moxie, so I'm happy to look it up though. That's cool. Let's go into our favorite scenes.
I'm sorry, I'm still like blown away. I started laughing for no reason. Breakfast Club. Just can't believe. We'll move along.
Move along. Here's the thing. We're talking about this movie before we're talking about Breakfast Club.
That's because it's your favorite movie.
I don't care. You could have put Breakfast Club on the table at any point if it was your favorite teen movie.
It's not.
Okay. Or if you thought it was the best.
Since I didn't rewatch Mean Girls for this, I will now be talking about Breakfast Club for the rest of the episode.
Okay. And we'll just compare.
So my favorite scene of Breakfast Club is the dance montage.
No, Ashby.
Really
what
good.
about you? What about you? It's a banner year at the Bender household. My dad got me a carton of smoke. Anyway, we're not talking about Breakfast Club. We can talk about Breakfast Club. I love Breakfast Club. It's one of my favorite movies, yes.
I mean,
I do not think it's better than this one, but I love Breakfast Club. Again,
all Regina George did was graduate and went to play lacrosse. Emilio Estevez struggled hard in that detention center and went on to coach the Mighty Ducks to the Junior Goodwill Games. Champions. They beat Iceland.
Also may have assaulted Molly Ringwald in that movie. Anyway, moving on.
This has really devolved pop culturally.
It really has. Favorite scenes from Mean Girls.
Okay. A scene I really like because I watched it last night and I don't know the last time I saw it since then. But I know I've seen it. But the scene where she is going around at the lunchroom, like she has the whole map of the lunchroom.
The cafeteria scene, yes.
And showing like who sits at what tables. The part where she gets to themselves. So
The
It's
best people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, Janice and Damien. She's like the best people you were, or the greatest people you ever meet, and they're like smiling and giving her funny faces. I was like, that's totally my friends from high school. And where Ashby had mentioned earlier about how she, avoids some movies that puts her back in situations. I feel like in movies like this, I'm always like, that's the one I hung out with. That's me. That's so and so. Like I'm just fully putting myself into the movies. And I think it's easier to say from the guy's standpoint with this movie too, because it's like, oh, it's all about girls being petty and drama. It's like, no, dudes are exactly the same way. It's just we just didn't get the movie, which I'm sure we got other movies that show it.
We got Varsity Blues.
Yeah. The only other one that I'll just throw out there, I love how it happens a couple times in the movie, but where there's her reaction in her head is all the people acting like animals in the jungle. Mm-hmm. Where literally she dives across like a wildcat and tackles Regina George, and then you have the hot boy crush that's like screaming like a monkey,
like the howler monkey.
Yeah, you've just the entire people break out acting like animals. I think it's done really well because I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh man, this is insane!" And then you realize it's all in her head. But I just enjoyed those moments.
Very nice, Ashby.
I like the trust fall scene. Specifically the one where Gretchen gets up and she's like, I'm sorry I'm so popular. And then she trust falls in.
Right into Karen. Yes.
Only Karen catches her.
I love it. And like the look on Karen's face is like, that was the best apology I've ever heard. Walking off. Like, you're okay.
She's supposed to give this heartfelt apology and she's like, I'm sorry I'm so popular.
Yes.
Oh.
My favorite scene is the cafeteria scene. Janice taking Katie through all the cliques before she gets introduced formally to the plastics. That includes the scene where she's actually talking to the plastics for the first time. Where some other guy's hitting on her and they save her from Jason, who is objectively the worst person in this movie.
Yes.
The talent show, which, is memorable for the plastics version of Jingle Bell Rock, that dance, but also included Damien's version of Beautiful by Christina Aguilera, Don't Look at Me, and Kevin G in The Power of Three doing that wonderful rap, at the very, that I used at the very beginning of this episode. And then, of course, the burn book being exposed in the hallway, which led to the intervention in the gym, including the scene that Ashby talked about, which ended up leading to Regina getting hit by a bus, which, big turning point in the movie. So those are my favorite scenes. What aged the best from this movie?
Me being a dude just watching it, not even being a dude, I don't think that matters, but I think just the meaning behind it. Obviously there's stuff that's exaggerated in this movie. There's stuff that, is just overdone completely. But just the meaning in this, because it put me right back in high school. And I know it still happens now. It's probably even more so now with social media and everything else. But to know, we make a big deal out of a bunch of stupid mess, especially that age. And it's not like downing if you're a high schooler right now, downing you. I'm not talking crap about you, but it's just emotions are so strong at that point that we want so much for people to like us and to fit in. And we do stupid things and say stupid things. And just change who we are completely to try to be the cool ones and fit in. Mm-hmm. And some of us go the opposite way, where we try so hard not to fit in, but we're still really trying really hard, so hard not to fit in that we're fitting in somewhere else.
Right.
And I just feel like it still has a strong thing that can go from generation to generation still, because like I said, I know bullying and everything else still happens now. And I don't know, like I said, it's meant more so to be somewhat of a comedy, so stuff's exaggerated a whole lot in some scenes, but I still think that's something that still happens today.
Ashby?
So this movie came out 2 years before the first High School Musical movie, and I feel like High School Musical gets a lot of credit for the you can be a jock and a theater kid and a nerd and smart and whatever.
Right.
And I get that there are definitely cliques in high school. But I like that the resolution to this movie was that yes, there were still cliques and there were still places where you felt like you fit in, but you could be in more than one place, you
Yes.
know, like
Yes.
Caddy could be
She could be friends
Katie?
with. Yeah, she could be friends with
Caddy.
the
Anyway,
Katie. It's
Um,
pronounced Katie.
Katie.
I've heard it both
So,
ways.
like,
They-
she could be a mathlete and she could be the homecoming queen.
Mhm.
And, you know, Gretchen could be, Regina could be gorgeous and a really good athlete.
Mhm.
And I just really liked that it ended with this idea that, like, they all found places that they belong, but they had also found other opportunities to hang out with other people. And I think that, you know, my high school experience was, you know, I had a group of friends that were like my clique, I guess, that I fit in with and that I hung
Right.
out with, but I was, you know, varsity golf, varsity soccer, honor club, newspaper, Spanish. Like I was doing a ton of things, and that put me in contact with a ton of different people. I didn't have one, you know, I wasn't like the goth kid, the band geek, the jock. Like I was in every group because I was doing so many different things, and I think that for the most part that really is the true experience of most high school kids. You're doing multiple different things.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that this movie sort of represented that for our generation, you know, 2 years before High School Musical was like, you can do multiple things in high school. It's
We're
like, well, yeah.
all in this together. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. So for me, what aged the best? I have 4 things here. First is the soundtrack. The soundtrack bops, guys. It is fantastic. Check it out. It's really cool. The second is the incredibly difficult dynamics of making your way through high school. I feel like it's still the same. It's just maybe different for kids now because it's, 15, 17 years later, but that dynamic's still the same. You're still trying to make sure you're impressing people. You're still trying to, like, I'm not saying that's the best thing, but it's aged correctly. Like, it's the same thing as it was 17 years later. I feel like this movie captures it, and it's still something true today. Regina George is a villain for me, aged really well. Like, she's just a very memorable villain. And then the last is students seeing teachers outside of school and it being awkward. That aged really well, too. Like, when they run into Tina Fey's character at the mall, and, Regina or Janice is like, man, I love seeing teachers outside of school. It's like watching a dog walk on its hind legs. Yes, it is. That's how it feels as the teacher. And then they're like, so you doing some shopping? And she's like, no, I'm here with my boyfriend. And there's just some random old guy there. And she's like, a joke. I make jokes, people. So that aged the best for me. What aged poorly? And I have several things on this list for a movie I love. But what aged poorly, or what are your nitpicks about this movie?
We'll let Ashby go first.
Ashby, want to go first?
Did I mention that I didn't rewatch this movie for this episode?
You did.
So
You did.
I don't have any.
Did you watch the
specifics.
8-minute recap video I sent you?
She said it wasn't
I
entertaining.
did.
Okay.
I did.
Cool. Of course, that was
and
a
it brought it-
list of the best moments. So
Right. So like I was watching the highlights. So I think that I remember even at the time, or maybe I rewatched it in college with some friends and realized that there were some things that just weren't aging well. Some of the humor,
Yeah.
I think especially the whole running joke when she gets to the school and they expect her to be black because she's coming from Africa.
Yes, that's the first
And then
thing I
she
have.
walks up to all the black kids at the table and speaks Afrikanese or whatever to them, Afrikaans, and they're just like, "Excuse me."
Yeah.
And the race jokes did not
They
age
don't
well.
fly very well, no.
Yeah.
Kyle, what do you think?
I agree. That's the only main thing I wrote was just the humor. Like, some of it's still funny, but there's some things and topics, the way it's said or done isn't done so well, or it doesn't age well. I will say there's some things I feel like that are iffy, that are on the borderline of, is that funny or is it not funny? And there's some things that are very much like, there's some that are black and white and it's obvious one way or the other, but there's some things that's like, depending on who says it, depends on if it's funny or not.
Yes.
And in those certain characters, it is funny for that situation, for like to be able to be honest about things.
Right.
But like I said, it's easy to pick apart the whole thing if you really wanted every little thing. But I think you do have to kind of look at it from some different eyes and say, is that funny coming from them, or is it just not funny at all? And I definitely think there's some of both of those situations throughout the movie.
All right, so here's what I've got. Casual racism is the first thing on my list. In multiple ways, how Africa is depicted in the movie, like as this rural area where everyone acts like savages and stuff. Like, no, that's not all of Africa. The fact that she's introduced as from Africa, the continent, is troublesome to me because Africa's full of countries, some that are undeveloped, some that are very developed. But every country has like major cities and major ports and stuff, and so just the idea that that's how Africa's portrayed. As someone who's been there, I hated that.
Allegedly,
yes. Assuming the only black girl in class is the girl from Africa, again, problematic. The depiction of the coach as a child predator, did not like that. Okay, I don't like PE teachers already get a bad rap as it is. I thought he was hilarious, trying to teach health ed and sex ed, but the fact that he's hooking up with two of the students. No, that is very, very bad, and I hate that's how my
not cool
at all.
There was the part of me watching that too that, it was contradictory, where he's very much like so nervous, talking to these kids about having sex.
Don't have sex, but
don't do it. Don't do it at all.
You'll die if you do. You'll get chlamydia and you'll die.
But then he's hanging out and having affairs.
Coach Carr,
or you'll get pregnant.
Yeah, you'll get pregnant, and then you'll die. Yes,
and then you'll die.
Yes, so just don't do it, okay, kids. Yeah, I don't like how he was. I know it was done for comedic effect, but I'm a PE teacher, I'm a coach, and I would not want anyone to think of me in that particular light. So yeah, that aged poorly for me personally. Body shaming is something that has aged poorly, and obviously it still happens. So I know they depicted it in the movie as something that happens, and it still happens today. I still think it's aged poorly. Buses speeding through a school zone. How fast were those buses going at the front of the school? They are not supposed to go that fast in front of a school. I'm sorry. That is aged poorly for me. As someone who sees buses every day, they should not be going that fast, and they are. I tell them to slow down. Two more things for me that aged poorly. The first, a teacher having to work multiple jobs to make a living wage has aged very poorly for me. I can't believe that Mrs. Norbury is having to bartend and do another job. Like she's working 3 jobs, she mentions, to pay for her divorce. That's aged poorly. Teachers shouldn't have to work more than their one job to make a living wage.
I don't know, and I know this is your career, so I don't want to step on it and sound bad. But I don't know if it necessarily is aged poorly if it's still accurate. Just because it's still an issue.
I think the issue is aged poorly, not necessarily the accuracy of it being true.
No, not all of them. I don't mean that by any means. But there's definitely some that have multiple jobs or do something on the side.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The fact that that's still a thing, that is aged poorly to me.
Yeah.
So the fact that it happened is, maybe it's aged good, but the fact that it's still happening is what's poor to me. And then the last, of course, that fetch didn't happen. That is aged poorly to me as well.
Well, that's all up to you. So it's literally on how often do you use it.
But in breaking the fourth wall, did fetch actually happen? Because fetch didn't happen?
That's true.
Here we
I mean, I think Mean Girls made fetch happen.
Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it should have happened in the movie, though. Poor Gretchen. That might be one of the nicest things to say about Gretchen. I have some more words for her, too. Well, speaking of making fetch happen, even though it didn't happen in the movie, what are some of your favorite quotes?
Boo, you whore.
Yes. Ashby, when you said you hadn't watched the movie, I wanted to respond with that quote, but I didn't know how you would take it. I didn't know how you'd take it. So.
I would love it. I would love it.
What else you got, Kyle?
Well, once again, I think that's a line that us can hear that and think it's hilarious because we can see each other saying that to each other. There's some other people that have some really big issues with that, I'm sure.
Well, Karen had an issue with it in the movie. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe my friend talked to me that way. But,
well, Erica, as soon as we were watching it last night, Erica started busting out laughing because her and her Jeep group and stuff, she said, that's how we respond to each other in the Jeep group. It's that's literally a saying we say to each other in the Jeep group.
Oh my goodness.
Another one I thought was really funny was oh my God, Danny DeVito, I love your work.
Yes, great line. We'll ignore the fact that Jamie's just hanging out in the girls' bathroom. And he does it again, like when they invite all the junior girls to the gymnasium, and he's just chilling back there with his hoodie on. I mean, but hilarious line.
Let some other people go.
Ashby?
I like the from Karen where she's like, it's like I have ESPN or something.
Yes. Which then she follows that up with, my breasts can tell when it's going to rain. Which is then followed up with, well, they can tell when it's raining.
They can tell when it's already raining. Yeah. Bless Karen. I mean, like, bless her. I love her character.
Karen.
The more
he puts the K on in the mirror and it's backwards.
This time watching this movie, there was so much more that I appreciated her character. Like before, I feel like I focused on other people, but this one I focused a lot on her. It was like, this had to have been tough as her as an actress moving forward to just been like the dumb blonde in this movie, where that's what people would know her for forever, you know. And she's done lots of other things that I was not aware of until I looked it up to be like.
She was in Mamma Mia.
Yeah, well, these thoughts happened, and I was like, she's had to have been in other things.
She was in that Justin Timberlake movie. I don't know the name of it anymore.
Well, so I looked up the timing, ironically, because it made me think of it because I just watched Veronica Mars. It was one of those shows that kind of I missed, and I've had some time, so I went back and I watched Veronica Mars for the first time, and that also came out in 2004. And she was playing a Regina George-like character on Veronica Mars in the first season.
Like, ironically, she actually auditioned for the role of Regina George. And they said she did it really well. Like, it was a different take on it, but she said she was somehow more, like, scary than Rachel McAdams, but less intimidating. Like, Rachel McAdams nailed the perfect balance between being scary and intimidating, where Amanda Seyfried was actually scarier than her than Rachel McAdams' take on Regina George, and they were they wanted to keep her, so they were like, well, won't you be Karen? And that was like the simplest role, and she nailed it. Like, she just she did a fantastic job there. Any other quotes from y'all?
I remember the scene just because I thought it was very like being in a group of girls where Regina goes, but you're like really pretty, and Katie's like, thanks, and she's like, so you agree? You think you're really pretty? Like, it's just like, why are we playing these word games? Like, what is happening?
Like,
I just said thank you.
Literally setting a trap for her to see how she would respond. Like, she's already sizing her up. Like, that's the beauty of her villain. Like, she sees this girl and like, let me see how she responds to this, and let me talk. Then they make fun. They low key make fun of her bracelet there, and Katie doesn't realize it till midway through the movie. Wait, she was making fun of me that first day about my bracelet. Like, low key. Like, I mean, just like she's already kind of setting Katie up for some failure, thinking, hey, this girl might be a threat. I need to go ahead and talk down to her and take her down a notch just in case.
Right, because then she watches her do it to that girl with the skirt. Right, she's like, "Oh my god, I love your skirt,"
vintage.
And she's like, "Thanks, it was my mom's."
Yeah, that is the ugliest
she's like,
effing skirt I've ever seen.
Yes, and it's just like, okay,
wow.
Why did you even have to say? Like, why didn't you just not say anything?
Because she's a mean girl. The world revolves around her. She wants people to know. Yeah.
The other one I really like is whenever they're upset with Katie and driving away, and Damien's like, I want my shirt back.
I want my pink shirt back.
Yep.
Well, that whole scene too, like it's past 1 o'clock, and like he's driving really slow, and Janice is fussing, and he's like, "I cannot stop this car. I have a curfew." Janice, curfew's at 1, and it's 1:15.
We were watching that scene because the whole movie we've been like, Erica saw Janice, and she's like, "That was me in high school." He's like, I didn't necessarily dress that way, and I probably didn't vocalize it, but that's how I felt a lot in high school. And I was like, yeah. Well, all of a sudden that scene happens. He's like, yo, let me shirt back. Erica's like, that's totally Eric. Yeah. She's like, that's Eric's character. She's like, and I told her today, I was like, I'm going to say that. And she's like, I don't know. She's like, I don't want him to get mad by thinking I'm insulting him by that. Nah. I was like, no. I was like, but that's totally Eric's character. Nah. He's the guy singing later. He's like, that's Eric's job. He's quoting all the things. That's him.
Yeah. Some of my favorite quotes. When they're doing the trust fall stuff, the girl in the wheelchair says, I don't hate you because you're fat. You're fat because I hate you. I don't even know how to wrap my mind around that, but it's hilarious to me. It's one of my favorite quotes. Karen's, you want to do something fun? You want to go to Taco Bell? Like, just the fact that going to Taco Bell would be something fun for Karen to do. Just, I love that.
Seems legit.
Seems legit. And, of course, I think Jessica Sterling responded to your post today with that quote. And, of course, you have to respond with, no, Karen, I can't go to Taco Bell because I'm on an all-carb diet. God, Karen, you're so stupid.
Which, in fact,
Is butter
Regina's
a
stupid.
carb?
Because
Yeah,
Taco Bell is carbs.
Yes. Well, she has no concept of what carbs are, because if you see in that same scene, she's eating bread.
Oh, sure.
And she's eating all these things that are full of carbs.
The only thing I can think of is I think it's Mighty Ducks 2, where Goldberg feels threatened because Julie the Cat Gaffney, a girl's going to take his spot as the main goalie. And he was talking to her about trying to help her get in a good diet. And he has her on an all-carb diet where she's eating stuff all the time and keeps bringing her pastries. And then she barfs on the ice. So that's all I could think about was just, this is pretty much the same thing happened to Mighty Ducks.
Tim Meadows, as Principal Duvall, had some great quotes, and here's a couple of them. You know, he's trying to help a girl down who's hanging from like a ladder or something, like in the hallway when the girls are fighting, and she kicks at him. And he's like, "Hell no, I did not leave the South Side for this." I just love that line. Then he busts the fire alarm, and everyone's hair gets wet. And just I love that. And then at the beginning of the movie, he gets Katie's name wrong. He pronounces it Katie, and she's like, "No, it's Katie." He's like, "My apologies. I have a nephew named Anthony, and I know how mad he gets when I call him Anthony. Almost mad as I get is when I think about the fact that my sister named him Anthony." A couple more. Is butter a carb? Yes, of course. Everyone in Africa can read Swedish. Hi, it's Karen Smith. It's 68 degrees, and there's a 30% chance it's already raining. Podcast people, you didn't see that, but yeah, I definitely did the whole hand motion there. And then the last one, my Nana takes her wig off when she's drunk. Your Nana and I have that in common. So, great quotes. Any unanswered questions for y'all?
I didn't. But you can
sorry.
go ahead.
I also like the principal when he was giving the speech at the dance or whatever, and he was like, "I for one cannot wait for this
year to be
be
in."
over."
Like he had some great like low key like when he's at the talent show and he's like, "Everyone make some noise," and they're all clapping. And it goes. He's like, "Okay, settle down." A little too long. Tim Meadows was fantastic.
This isn't so much an unanswered question. It's just something that I thought of that I didn't realize when I was younger and watched it. It was how much this was a Saturday Night Live movie.
Yes.
And I know they were careful about how they did it so it didn't just come out as a Saturday Night Live movie.
Yes.
But to realize the people that were in charge of it, the people that were in it, Tina Fey writing it, I feel like it just has that funniness to it or that feeling to it. The same way you go back and watch some of the generations before with like Chris Farley or Adam Sandler or other things like that. It's not over the top goofy or anything in this one, but there's just that extra humor that you don't get. I don't feel like if a comedy written by somebody else, just having some of those main key people come in and play these characters or play these roles, it automatically
has a
starts
certain
noticing.
je ne sais quoi, if you will.
It does, yes. Like so, the more I kept seeing it, I was like, "This is awesome."
Don't use that word. We don't know what it means.
I imagine it's a chef's kiss, maybe.
Yes. Any unanswered questions for you, Ashby?
Why don't I like this movie? I don't know.
understand. I thought
can't
you
tell
did. Like part of the reason we put it on the schedule is because I thought you enjoyed it. So I know
was-
I enjoyed it.
I
I
don't
thought
know.
you enjoyed it too. So
I was leaving work today, and Michael Thompson was like, "Oh, I have a good time on the podcast tonight." He's like, "It's one of Eric's favorites, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's one of his favorites." I was like, "I also found out today that Ashby doesn't really care for it, so this should be fun." It's like kind of laughed. He's like, "Well, good luck."
good luck. Here's some of my unanswered questions. So we know Aaron and Katie, they got together in the movie, but come on, he went off to college. She's still a senior in high school. When do they break up? They break up at Halloween or do they break up at Thanksgiving? I'm just
Well, I guess first school year. Never mind.
Yeah. I'm thinking they broke up at Thanksgiving. She went to go visit him at a Halloween party. They got a big fight there, and they broke up over Thanksgiving, is my theory.
Yeah,
So,
somewhere in between. Yeah. The week before Thanksgiving break.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How did Regina survive getting hit by that bus? Because that bus was coming in pretty hard. I mean, she's got superpowers. I'm just saying.
She's too mean to die.
Exactly.
good.
How did Janice and Regina become friends and then ultimately have a falling out? And I have a theory on why they had a falling out, and it's just a misunderstanding. There were, Regina was starting, rumors that that Janice might be a lesbian, but we find out at the end of the movie that she's Lebanese. And I'm wondering, did Regina just find out that she's Lebanese and she misunderstood? And that's the whole fallout between Regina and Janice?
Well, I feel like it was good.
That actually makes perfect sense.
It does. I never even thought about that.
Like, that hit me yet last night when I was watching, like, wait a minute, Lebanese, there's some wordplay here. I wonder if that's why she thought, that's why the rumor got started was Janice is Lebanese. Like, that makes perfect sense to me.
I will say I'm glad that they included that relationship as well.
Yes.
Because you do see that a lot where there's kids that come up, even like, from being really good friends in elementary school and getting to middle school, and there's just that change there.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also see that when they get to high school, there's a big change where all of a sudden people that were really close start growing apart. And a lot of times that does come with hurt feelings and anger or animosity towards each other. Sometimes,
it happens in life as adults.
It does.
I mean, it's something that happens. I mean, my best friend from high school and I don't talk anymore. I mean, it's just part of life. It's just how it happens. So, anyway, random section. I've got a couple of follow-up questions that I put on there. I don't know if y'all saw them today. But I'm going to jump into those, and then we can jump in with anything else random if y'all want to talk about it. What was the worst thing that Regina did, in your opinion, in this movie?
It took me a minute to remember, but I started thinking them through. To me, the worst thing that she did the entire movie was there was the girl at the mall flirting with the guy or whatever, and she called that girl's mom, pretending to be a lady from Planned Parenthood.
Yep.
And said her test is in, and this, I need to,
it's urgent.
It's urgent. We need to talk. And then, just me, it's like that ruins the relationship with the mom and the daughter for who knows how long, because now there's trust issues there.
Yep.
This shouldn't be. But then also we already see how badly people talk about each other.
Yes.
So what level is this going to even more so bring this girl's life down? That's just a horrible thing to do in general, but then there's a lot of after effects coming from that as well.
To me, that was the worst thing she did. The only thing that came close was not letting fetch happen. So, Ashby, do you have anything?
I concur.
You concur. Number 2, who was actually the worst person in this movie? Like, the worst character, or like, when I say character, like, who was the worst person in this movie?
I'm sure there's a lot deeper of an answer that you could find, but for me it was Regina, just because I thought about all the other people that were so much affected were all somewhat circled around her. Like, people were doing things and saying things because they wanted her to like them. But then also, like, even as a grown-up now, and seeing how she treats her parents and how she treats them, like, treats her friends that are supposedly her best friends, air quotes, and then she treats strangers horribly, but then also she treats her family horribly. So I feel like there's multiple people there that's causing. Now, there are other people, Katie for doing horrible things as well. Also, Janice, kind of instigates this whole thing to begin with,
right?
Instead of doing whatever else. But that's the one that stands out to me.
For me, and I mentioned it earlier, Jason is the worst person in this movie. Jason is Gretchen's on-again, off-again boyfriend. And our first scene with him is he's in the cafeteria, and there's a quote I'm not going to quote on Facebook because I already got in trouble earlier. Well, not really get in trouble, but But the second scene with him is Katie's walking in the lunchroom, and he comes up to her and it's like, hey, we're taking a survey of new lunchtime students. Is your muffin buttered? Would you like us to assign someone to butter your muffin? And she's like, what? And he's doing it right in front of the girl he was supposed to call last night. So he's a jerk already. The next scene we see from him, I think, is at the talent show, and he throws a shoe at Damien while he's performing. Now, he got his comeuppance later because Gretchen kicked the boombox into his face, so good for Gretchen. I don't think she did it on purpose, but he leads Gretchen on a roller coaster ride of emotions. He's a jerk in the worst sense of the word. I don't think there's any redeemable qualities about him whatsoever. He's just a creep and a jerk. I can find some redeemable qualities in every other character in this movie, including Regina. I cannot find a redeemable quality in him at all. So, Ashby, do you have any thoughts?
Regina's mom.
Yes.
I love Amy Poehler. I love how she plays this character. But if you take the character at face value, the only thing worse than high schoolers who act this way are parents who act this way.
Sure, absolutely.
That enable and that want to be the cool parent and that can't form boundaries and that can't say no. And I think she's one of the worst people in the movie.
Is there alcohol in this? Oh, God, no. What kind of mom do you think I am? Why do you want some? Because if you're going to drink, I would rather you do it in the house at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so which table are you sitting at in the cafeteria? And I listed all the categories that Janice listed there in the movie. You have your preps, your JV jocks, Asian nerds, cool Asians, varsity jocks, girls who eat their feelings, girls who don't eat anything, unfriendly black hotties, burnout, sexually active band geeks, desperate wannabes, the greatest people you ever meet, a.k.a. the art freaks, or the plastics, the worst. Where are you sitting?
I'm floating from table to table.
Me too!
Because I feel like,
Same.
as you said earlier, and I feel like it's something. I don't think it applies to everybody in high school, but I feel like the three of us at least were the people that kind of were friends with everybody, or at least could be, have stuff with everybody. So it honestly just depends who was in that lunch whenever I came out.
Yeah. I mean, I think my senior year sat at a different table every day because I knew everyone, but I wasn't close with like any one group enough to sit with them every day. So I was like, let's just, go around. So I sat with the jocks one day, and I sat with the band geeks one day, and I sat with the art people one day, and I sat with the cool people one day. And, I sat with the farmer guys one day. Because that was a thing at our school.
But same way there's like the emo kids or whatever else, or just rock people.
Them.
I think it was for us too, is just, and I know because there's part of me that wants to pretend that like we didn't have our cliques at least blended a little better than what's shown in this movie. And maybe they did somewhat, but then it's also me looking at it from like a polished, viewpoint from years and years later, looking back on glory days versus there's definitely cliques people that would have given you weird looks for even thinking about sitting with them, and would have talked trash about you the whole time. Like there's a lot of stuff there that existed. And so I don't want to ignore it, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like it got more difficult the older I got,
right? Especially
by my senior year, and me becoming a person that was more like Janice, that was more just who she was and enjoyed that. That I was thankful that I still had friends in other clique groups that were very much still loving and welcoming and being my friend. But I started to realize too, like I wasn't caring so much to fit in with everybody else,
right?
And so by that point, I started seeing a lot of just the dumb things that other people did. By making fun of other people for their sexual orientation or other things, because I just remember it happening. There's no point in me going into big stories about it, but it's just like one of those things that they made fun of somebody and thought it was hilarious and then thought that it was necessary to come to me and tell me, hey, you should go make fun of this person because of this. And I just kind of looked at them and was like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And by all means, I'm not perfect. I know I've said and have done hurtful things in my life too. I don't want to pretend like I'm an angel, but at the same time, like I am thankful to have hit that point. It's been aware of the dumb things and not felt, like you had to fit in with whatever.
Here's the thing about us and Ashby. You will probably agree with this, but we went to a small high school. We were a 1A high school in Johnston County, not remotely the most popular part of Johnston County in rural North Carolina. So, like, all our cliques kind of had to blend in, like, because we didn't have so many people in our classes. Like, I think my graduating class was 139. And I know they've gotten bigger as the years have gone on, but that's still a small high school compared to other high schools, in our state even. So, like, we knew everybody because we were a small high school. We had to kind of blend in. You kind of had to be a band geek and a jock at the same time because we didn't have enough people to go around. You had to do the High School Musical thing because we didn't have enough people to play baritone and middle linebacker. That's just kind of what we had to do. So you kind of all got spread, across all the different genres of people because that's all we had in our school. So, but Ashby, I know you answered earlier, but would you also agree that you're floating at the tables?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I can be a little bit more specific just within the criteria of the movie. I was probably floating between jocks, desperate wannabes, and art freaks for the most part.
That's fair. We, we didn't have the Asian nerds or the cool Asians at our school because rural Dulce
No.
County, we barely had people from that part of the world at our school. So
Let me tell you, though, we did have some sexually active band geeks.
yes, we did.
Especially that drum line. You got to watch out for that drum line. You'll get chlamydia and die.
Yes.
That's why our band
Don't do it
department
standing
just-
up.
That's why our band department just died out over the years.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Moving on. Who won the movie? I've got 3 answers for this, but yeah.
I actually have an answer for this.
Go for it.
And I'm pretty firm about this. I think Regina George won the movie because if you look at the characters who changed the most from the start of the movie to the end of the movie, that evolved for the better and learned to be a better person and was a happier, more well-adjusted person by the end of this movie. Because if you think about it, Katie was back to where she started, basically. But Regina was a completely different person. She wasn't mean. She had found a place that she belonged. She had found a way to channel her more negative emotions and her anger. And she was happy, with the athletes. And I really think that she won the movie.
All right, Kyle.
That's an option. I hadn't thought of that option, but it's an option.
I don't disagree with it.
No. I went a different route. I said I think Tina Fey's character, Ms. Norbury, won the movie. Just because at the beginning of the movie, she was a character that even as a teacher, you could tell that kids just didn't really take her serious, or at least not enough.
She's a pusher.
She was. But by the end of the movie, she's the one that pretty much is entrusted to take care of this whole situation that's going on. And she's finally I really appreciated the fact of her honesty with these kids. She has them there. She doesn't just beat around the bush. She just lays it out there and just calls it for what it is and tells people, you're calling each other sluts and all these other names and it's horrible and you need to stop.
Yes.
To be able to have these big conversations, to be able to, even throughout this whole process, she just doesn't turn around right. She doesn't dump Katie and leave her out to dry and just say whatever for you, but she also doesn't just lovingly be like, oh, it's all okay. She's still tough on her enough to show her, be who you really are, excel at the things you're really good at, quit, belittling yourself for somebody's attention. And I just feel like by the end of the movie, she has more respect amongst the students for her, but probably the staff as well. And I gotta feel like she's at least more confident within herself because she starts off this movie with just recently having a divorce, having to have extra jobs to help pay for the divorce, and everything else she's having to deal with. Versus at the end, she finally was able to express herself, but also to probably be the teacher that people would want to come talk to now. If they're going through stuff, they have somebody they can trust to get through these situations with.
I think even in the movie, you see it whenever the principal, Mr. Duvall's like, Miss Norbury, you're a strong, confident, independent woman. And she's like, I am. Mm-hmm. She was even having that self-doubt there. And he's like, there's got to be something you can say to, get their attention, and she's like, I don't think it's confidence. They're all pretty full of themselves. But, she takes charge. And I think that's a motivator that she needed. Mm-hmm. She got it from her superior and she needed that confidence and that encouragement. And like you said, I think that's a great answer too. I have a real world answer and then an in movie answer. I feel like in the real world, Rachel McAdams won this movie and Lindsay Lohan lost because Rachel McAdams' career took off. It was Mean Girls, then The Notebook, then Wedding Crashers, and then Red Eye.
Did she already film The Notebook before this came out, though?
She had filmed it, and it came out after this movie.
But she already filmed it before this.
Yes.
Movie. Okay.
Yes.
Just checking.
So, her career took off.
Mm-hmm.
She had, 3 great movies in a row. this was Lindsay Lohan's last great role. Like, after this, rumors came out the next year, and I'm talking about the song that she recorded. That was her downfall, and then she went into some unfortunate, situations with drugs and paparazzi. We talked about this with Britney Spears a couple of weeks ago. They are just not kind to teen or young women in pop culture industries, and I think Lindsay Lohan got chewed up by it, and it's really unfortunate because she was very, very talented. They were calling her like a young Jodie Foster, after like Parent Trap and Freaky Friday. I mean, like, she was on her way to do some good things, and then the awfulness of the paparazzi and of the way Hollywood treats women of that age, it really got. I mean, it just really. I'm not excusing what some of the things that she needs to take responsibility for, but I just hate that's the path that it took her on, because she had a lot of really good talent, and I wish we would have been able to see her in some more classic movies. But I think this was her last really big movie before she hit rock bottom.
Not to interrupt you from continuing forward your next one yet, but something I didn't realize whenever I was like watching some behind the scenes stuff with this movie is that whenever they were recording this, she wasn't even 18 yet.
No, she was 17.
She was still like a teenager, versus typically on these type of movies, you would have somebody that's probably early 20s or something that just dressed in, which is like Rachel McAdams is like 8 years older.
27,
yeah. So she was much
20,
more.
She was 25 when it was filmed.
Yeah, but sitting right across from the table, and honestly, you just see them both as same age classmates. Mm-hmm. You don't realize that Lindsay Lohan is also still young at this point. Once again, that's not an excuse for anything. It's just, but you don't realize the age. You just watch it and assume she's probably in her 20s at this point, but she's not. So I don't know. It's a lot to go along with that.
But in movie, I feel like everybody won something except Gretchen Wieners. Because she's the only one who did not learn anything throughout the movie. She's still serving in a clique, serving another Queen Bee character. She learned Vietnamese for the be in that clique. I mean, she's still just trying to be a people pleaser. She wants to be in a popular clique, and she's doing, everything she can to serve this other person, this leader of the clique. And of course, fetch didn't happen. So again, she lost. I think everyone else won, but I think she lost.
And there's the part too I hate for that. And I know this is all like just a movie, but you can tell like deep down she actually has a good heart where she really cares about things. She just is so infatuated with trying to be good enough for other people that she never gets to truly just live and express, who she truly is in the caring part. Because I feel like if she ever got to that point, you would see a much better person or much, more caring person. Because you see her emotions run wild a little bit throughout the movie. But I just don't think, I feel like her feelings of having to be appreciated or, somebody, serving somebody is much greater than anything else.
All right.
Fun facts time. 1 for you. 4 for you, Glen Coco. You go, Glen Coco. And none for Gretchen Wieners. Bye. That's not exactly true. Let's give 6 fun facts and observations for Gretchen Wieners, 2 from each of us. Kyle Coco, you go first.
Okay. Is that my new name? Kyle Coco. Let's see. I was watching this today, and you mentioned it earlier about how they did the musical in 2018. Tim Meadows, I think, was the only actor from the movie that was actually in the musical. But also, I know when they did the Mean Girls reunion, I think in 2018, Tina Fey said she was in the midst of talking about doing a musical movie. So same way they've done other musicals like Hamilton or other, not necessarily Hamilton, it's more of a stage one, but still taking the musical version of this now and making a movie of the musical. And they are somewhat supposedly making that happen, or at least talks of making that happen.
All right. I'll do number 2. I love foreshadowing in movies, and I love imagery and stuff. And one of the big things that you see foreshadowing is the bus. Like you see the bus almost hitting Katie in the first scene, and it comes back to hit Regina later on. That's a big one. But there's actually a smaller thing that I didn't really even notice until I listened to Shay Serrano discussing this on his wonderful podcast, Villains. In the first cafeteria scene, when Katie meets the plastics, Regina, Karen, and Gretchen are all eating the same thing, and they're drinking the same thing. They have a sandwich with a Perrier with a white straw. The second cafeteria scene, Katie has joined the plastics at this point. Regina, Karen, and Gretchen are all still eating the same thing, but now Karen and Gretchen are drinking a Diet Coke, which is what Katie is drinking in that scene. And then in the last cafeteria scene, right before the infamous, "You can't sit with us!" quote, Katie, Gretchen, and Karen are all eating and drinking the same thing, and Regina is the odd person out there. I love the subtle imagery there. It's a minor detail, but it shows the progression of the plastics slowly changing their allegiances.
Nice. So I found like a real deep cut here.
Okay.
Just because I love the Disney tie-in. So Daniel DeSanto, who plays Jason, and Julia Chantry, who plays Amber.
Mm-hmm.
This was their second time being co-cast members. Their first team up was in 2000 when they were both in Phantom of the Megaplex, the Disney original movie.
Oh,
That's right.
Nice.
Mine is not as deep. Lindsay Lohan's character is named after Tina Fey's college roommate. She says, while studying drama at the University of Virginia in the early 90s, Tina Fey and her college buddy, Katie Gary, shared what sounded like a rather squalid apartment in Charlottesville. Said we really didn't have any furniture. Said we just had mattresses on the floor and a beanbag in the living room. But that's where the name came from, that was her roommate as she wrote the script.
Nice. Number 5. All right. Before we go further, adult content warning coming up. So if you are listening to this, you have young kids in the car, you might want to fast forward about 3 or 4 minutes forward. This is adult content. This movie is rated PG-13, but it was almost rated R. 2 lines were changed to get it to PG-13. In the first cafeteria scene, Jason, again the objectionably worst person in this film, asked Katie if her muffin is buttered. If she would like to have someone assigned to butter her muffin. But originally that line was, "Is your cherry popped?" which makes that line way creepier. The second line was in the burn book. Amber DeLacia, which you just mentioned, the actress who played Amber in your fun fact, Ashby. She was accused of making out with a hot dog, which she responded to with, "Oh my God, that was one time."
It was one time.
Now, there are conflicting reports on what the original line was, so I'm just going to pick one that I think I can get away with. But one report says that the original line that had to be replaced was, "She had sex with a hot dog." Again, they changed those 2 lines to make it PG-13. There was another scene where the MPAA wanted to make it rated R based on one character's comment in the gym about her period, when she was talking about how she uses super jumbo tampons, but she has a wide flow and a heavy set vagina. And no, I got those mixed up. A heavy flow and a wide set vagina. But Tina Fey wrote a impassionate letter to the MPA saying there's nothing gross about that scene. She is just talking about a normal bodily function of a girl, and it's not used to make fun of. It's not used to damage anyone. It's a normal part of being a young girl, and it should not be docked because of that. So the MPA agreed.
She also apparently argued that Anchorman used the word vagina, and they got a PG-13 rating.
Absolutely. So good for you, Tina Fey.
That's right.
All right, Ashby.
Fairness. So since I've been talking, hello, James. Oh man, this is great. Just a cat tail in my face. Since I've been talking about High School Musical, I thought it was interesting. I found a little tidbit that Ashley Tisdale auditioned for Karen Smith and obviously didn't get it, and then she ended up being cast in High School Musical, 2 years later.
Nice.
So.
She's also the voice of Candace and Phineas and Ferb.
Yes, she is.
Yes. All right. Well, she doesn't even go here. Social media shout-outs, Kyle.
I was just looking through all the social media shout-outs, and this week it's easier just to say that we've already said them all, because literally everything was a quote from this movie, and I think that just speaks volumes for what this movie is, the same way
it's very memeable.
And that's where it came from. I think that's a reason that it has the following it's had all these years, is just how quotable it is, all the funny lines in it that you could quote now. So for all of you online, we definitely appreciate you joining in. We had a lot of conversation, but literally it's all either just gifs of from Mean Girls, or it's quotes from Mean Girls. And I think we've covered every single one of them so far.
I think so too. I'm surprised we didn't mention what is Mean Girls Day, which is October 3rd. Because in the movie, Aaron Samuels asked Katie, what day is it, on October 3rd? And she responds with, it's October 3rd. So, yeah. So we'll stop there. I wish we could all get along like we used to in middle school. I wish I could make a cake filled with rainbows and smiles, and everyone would eat and be happy. Thank you for Ricky Lyles for his contributions to our podcast. We also want to thank you, the listener, for being a part of our journey into pop culture nostalgia and general fandom and all the things that we like. Next week, Ashby, you're taking the week off. Me and Kyle will be discussing 90s sports celebrities. That ought to be an interesting conversation. Now, we're not talking about their contribution to their sports, but how they transcended pop culture. So we're not talking about Michael Jordan, the basketball player. We're talking about him, the actor, or whatever. That's just an example. So
we'll get a little more deep into it next week, but I think the idea of it is just the spectacularism of let's make that word up, of just sports, people from the 90s and how they were just a much bigger deal, even if it was just relating to their sports. But everyone on the planet knew who Michael Jordan was.
Absolutely.
So something along
we'll dive deep into that next week. Ashby, you enjoy your week off. I think you're coming back in 2 weeks. And I'm not sure what episode you'll be rejoining us on, but very excited for you to join us.
It'll be a surprise.
It'll be a surprise. Surprise. Oh,
surprise.
I'm sorry, but Eric just minimized his iPad screen to look at the schedule. And whenever he did, all these other open tabs popped up. And I wasn't trying to be nosy. I just glanced over, and Judge Judy was literally just sitting up in the corner.
Really Judge Judy?
Yeah, you've been watching some Judge Judy.
I actually have not.
Well, she's there.
Don't worry about it.
Doctor Strange is what you're going to be discussing in 2 weeks.
Okay.
No, it's
ready to get my
Judge
Cumberbatch
Judy.
on.
It's a BuzzFeed article. Yeah.
Either way,
it's a BuzzFeed article with Judge Judy on it.
Judge Judy, just her face was hanging out on the computer.
So that's awesome. So yeah, until next time on Wednesdays, we wear pink. Stay as cool as the other side of the pillow, and we'll see you next week.
What the what?
Bye.